Everyone, it's Suey. Last 2 weekends in a row, I've traveled for family events and lots of driving. So I listened to audiobooks, people. I listened to audiobooks. Yeah, in the course of those 2 weekends of driving, I've listened to 4 audiobooks. So I thought I would quickly tell you about them right here in my little road trip audio book review. The first one is We Were Dreamers by Simu. He is the dude that plays Shang-Chi, did I say that right? In the Marvel's movie, that Legend of the Ten Rings or something like that. That's where people started knowing him from. Before that, he was in Kim's Convenience, which is something I haven't watched yet. I hear he's pretty awesome there. And now he's also one of the Kens. If you've watched Barbie.
Oh, looks like this beach was a little too much beach for you, Ken.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beach you off right now, Ken.
I'll beach off with you any day, Ken.
Hold my ice cream, Ken. All right, Ken, you're on. Let's beach off.
Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first.
I will beach both of you off at the same time.
So we all know who he is. I was surprised at the people in my car. I was like, I'm listening to Simu Liu's book. It's really awesome. And everybody's like, who's that? So I'm assuming you guys all know who he is. Anyway, he was born in China and raised by his grandparents until he was 4 years old, while his mom and dad were over here in America trying to get their start. And then they came and got him after he was 4 years old and just took him away to be their kid now. And the way he tells this story actually brings me to tears, because I can't imagine raising a kid to 4 years old, even if you know that their parents are going to come and take them away someday, and then just having them go out your door and leave you. And he, as a 4-year-old, they didn't explain to him what was happening. All of a sudden, he was just with these people that he didn't know, and his people that he loved, they were not in his life anymore. It was such a painful story, although it was his own parents taking him away. That's how the book kind of starts. And it goes from there, him talking about living with his parents and them being so insistent that he did all the things, checks all the boxes, does all the right things, becomes smart, does really well in school, studies to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, and how he kind of started rebelling against that when he was a teenager. He talks about the conflict that they have and how they've since gotten over that and become friends again. And then he talks about how he sort of just falls into the industry of acting, but then he really, really works hard at it, and how he had to overcome his parents' hate towards that. Anyway, I loved his story. He is really funny. His narration is amazing. And so yeah, that was the first one I listened to, and I gave that one 5 stars. Totally loved it. Felt all the emotions. It was great. And then on the second trip, I listened to Bill Bryson's The Life and Times of the Thunderbolt Kid, where he talks about his childhood and growing up years in the 50s, which sounds absolutely amazing. 50s and a little bit of the 60s. He tells a lot of childhood stories, of course, but it turns into a lot of just historical stuff. And he covers the politics and the craziness and the things, things people were worrying about, like aliens and communism and a bunch of other stuff that, people were concerned about in the 50s, and the food that they ate and what they're wearing, and everybody was so enamored of appliances, and it goes on and on. The fascinating decade of the 50s. So I really enjoyed that one also. And I love Bill Bryson, and he's really funny. And so I always wanted to read that one. So that one was a fun one for him to narrate and for me to listen to. And then coming home from that trip, I listened to Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point, which I remember making a big, huge buzz years ago. So when I saw that was available, and it was real short. So I listened to that one, and I'm not sure I guess it kind of applies to like YouTubing and stuff a little bit, how people jump on a trend and how trends get started, and how things that seem so small and insignificant can all of a sudden become a big thing and everybody jumps on it. So it kind of can apply to YouTubing a little bit, I think. So it's just interesting to see how people work. People, I just keep saying people are weird. We do the weirdest things. We see somebody doing something and we think we have to do it, and then bam, there's this huge thing happening. And he talks about trends being like epidemics, which I found interesting in this day and age. because this was done way before our pandemic experiences, but he talks about how people are infected by things, not necessarily germs and pandemics, but all the things that happen. So it was quite interesting. And then after that, the fourth one I listened to was Killing Jesus by Bill O'Reilly and the other dude whose name I forget. This is one I've always been a little bit drawn towards, because I knew it would be a history of the life and times of Jesus. And so I found it to be really interesting to hear about like what the world was like then, and the backstories of all the Caesars, and the backstories of the people in power during the time of Jesus, and what their everyday lives would be like, what they were wearing, what they were eating. It's kind of like the same as, you know, the 50s one, only now we're in the brand new ADs. I don't know what you'd call that time period. The right after the 40s, the 30 and 40 ADs. So anyway, that was all really interesting, very brutal. People were ruthless in that day and age. Oh my goodness. And so the descriptions of some of the stuff those terrible Caesar people, all those Roman emperors were doing, terrible stuff. And then the description of crucifixion and all that came with it. You know, we all know, if anybody knows the story, we all know how terrible it was, but having it described in such historical detail made it feel even worse, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, I found that one to be really, really interesting also, and glad I finally checked that one out. So those are the 4 audiobooks that I read and listened to, during all this road tripping I've been doing the past couple of weeks. I'm so glad I have allowed audiobooks into my life. In the past, I would have just listened to music during all these driving hours, but the audiobooks really do make the driving and the time go by so fast. And then you feel like you've actually accomplished something at the end of it. It's kind of like the best kind of multitasking there is. So I'm really glad that I am, you know, letting that be part of my life now, my reading journey. And as Tori says, maybe one of these days I will add fiction to my audio listening. But right now I feel like nonfiction and having the author be the narrator is like my favorite thing right now. So let me know if you've read any of these or listened to any of these books and what you thought of them. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.